What's happening, Ann Brothers?
Oh, Jenny Brothers, everything is happening. It's a gorgeous day today. Look, I got my black kitty sleeping on the ottoman behind me. That's cool.
Hi, Black Kitty. That is
taking a
cool.
nap.
Hi, Kufuku. That's nice. We're actually having a little touch of fall this weekend.
Just a touch.
It was straight cold when I got up this morning. It was awesome. It was like 42 degrees in Kalamazoo this morning when I got up. Yeah, and I liked it. But technically, once we rolled over September 1st, it became meteorological fall, so the weather is behaving itself accordingly.
Yeah.
Though it still didn't rain very much here. We are crispy and crunchy. My lawn is, crunchy. So there you go.
We got a little bit of rain last week, enough to keep everything green and damp. But I was going for a walk the other day, and we have a bunch of sandhill cranes around us, and all the sandhill cranes in the summer are kind of rusty red, and they're starting to fade into gray. So they're gray in the winter. So most of them are mostly gray with little bits of red. So I'm like, it's happening, and
it's that
happening.
time. Indeed. Well, we have a big day today, and we have
Mhm.
company on the show today. We have Shannan Denison of Denison Financial with us today, who's going to talk us through the generations of what you should be doing, what you should be thinking about. It's pretty fun. It's awesome. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, we have a super busy day. Now the weather, of course, is going to turn back to summer this week, which is fine. I know you love that. So
I do.
That's fine. Fine. I myself am a crispy fall or a crispy spring girl myself. So, what are you going to do? Right. So, anyway,
take what you get. Try to make the best of it.
It's true. I know. We farmers marketed again yesterday, and you have some thoughts about that. We'll get to that in a minute. You have some rants to go with that. And
yes, I
do. So anyway, let's jump right into it. I'm going to get us on board here. And again, you guys, yes, we have our top 3 financial concerns for every generation with Shannan Denison today. But before we do that, let's have Ann take us through the synopsis. Here we go.
Welcome back to the Brother Sisters Smart Dumb Fun. Here's our synopsis. We are Ann and Janice Brothers. Our last name is Brothers. We are sisters. Wow. Yeah. We're
awesome.
I know, right? We're in our 50s, which makes us Generation X. That means if you're Generation X, it means that at least probably once in your childhood, you were loaded up with all the other kids into the back of an open pickup truck, because that was the best way to get all of them home after a day of swimming at the lake. And you didn't want to get the interior of your car wet or dirty. So a hallmark of Generation X was that children's safety, low concern. Car interior cleanliness, big concern.
Yes, I can see the graph now, the X and Y. I'm like, yep, that's correct. The good news though, Ann, is that's not that mode of transportation is not dead if you live in Northside in Kalamazoo. Okay. Open pickup truck lives.
Sometimes I still see it, like when I go back to St. Joseph County. I was like, oh, they wouldn't put the dog in the back, but the kids, no problem.
It's fine. But I can remember, like, when you got, it was like, when you were in the back of the pickup truck, you just felt such freedom and like, I'm so free. You felt like you were the coolest person ever.
No, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I miss it.
There was no fear. Yeah.
So anyway, today we're going to talk about smart stuff, dumb stuff, fun stuff, or any combination of the 3. It turns out we have, and this is exciting for Jenny and I. Usually we talk about how we're not cool, hip, or sexy, but it turns out that Jenny and I do have our moments of being cool and hip, if not sexy. When we are in public together, Janice and I are often mistaken as a lesbian couple. And there is no one cooler or hipper than lesbians. So there you go. We always take a certain delight in that. We're like, yeah, we're that cool.
Well, let's be honest, Ann. You by yourself would not be mistaken for a lesbian, but me with you, that sort of lends some, we'll say, evidence to that. I present lesbian. I have short hair. I wear hoodies a lot. I wear baggy shorts all the time. Yeah,
I present as a lipstick lesbian. So I'm like, yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
anyway, not that there's
so,
anything wrong with that. It's fine. It's fine. It's just,
no, it's great.
I don't know.
More cool and hip.
I just don't like long hair because I have a lot of hair and it's always like you have a hat on. And then when it's long, it's like you have a hat and a scarf on all the time. It's a lot. And I'm not particularly creative with my hair, so it just gets pulled back in a ponytail. So what's the point?
The
Sorry.
funny thing is, Jenny, even when you had long hair pulled back in a ponytail, everybody still thought you were a lesbian.
Totally.
It didn't matter.
Here, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. I
Anyway,
can't help the way I am. It's just the way I am. So,
right.
all right.
All right. So anyway, we are not a celebrity influencer or true crime podcast. We are the pizza of podcasts, Jenny. Like pizza, we're always good, and you can get different toppings every single time.
Yeah, and even when we're not very good, we're still really good because it's
Exactly,
pizza.
because it's still
Because
pizza.
it's brother sisters.
Exactly. Um,
Mhm.
we're great to listen to when you want to learn things about stuff and when you are walking your dog or dogs. And that's for you, Lisa, who listens to this podcast while she's walking her dog. And I met Lisa on Friday. In fact, Jenny Brothers, I want to just say that I was recognized because of our podcast. Somebody came up to me. I was at Glass Art Kalamazoo doing my volunteering. Somebody came up to me and she said, "Are you Ann Brothers?" And I was like, "Oh, did I go to high school with this woman? Because she looks really good." And I was like, and that makes me sad. But it turns out, no, she's a fan of our podcast and she recognized us. She knows Jenny because she used to teach with Jenny, but she had never met me and she recognized me from our podcast. I was like, look, Jenny, we're becoming famous.
That's right. And she recognized you because you are the voice of a generation. That's why.
That's why, exactly. Having said that, this
Pepsi
podcast
is the choice of a generation, and Anne is the voice of a generation. Yay!
this podcast is not GPG or even PG-13, though today we are going to be on our extra good behavior because we have a very special and important guest, and we want to make it look like that we're mature, responsible adults. So
We're on our best behavior. We're on company behavior today.
exactly. Exactly. So join us on our website, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. And like us, follow us, hit the bell, and leave us a review. Give us your feedback with our questions and answers and our polls. And you can ask Alexa to play us, and she'll do it. She's
She
she's
will.
a she's a very helpful person.
She's a
Woman.
stand-up chick. Yeah.
AI.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's can you change her voice to make her male? Because then it would be a completely different thing, wouldn't it? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I don't
Since when
either.
are
Okay.
men super helpful? Women are way more
I don't
helpful.
know. That's true. That's an excellent point, Ann Brothers.
Ah,
Ooh, yeah. That's right. Don't forget, and you guys remember when you want, you can support us for absolutely free. All you have to do is do one of these things: follow, like, subscribe on any of these places: Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. Yeah, sharing is caring. Tell your people that they should listen to this because we are going to be the Joe Rogan of older white women podcasts. So honk honk.
honk honk. Only funnier and less crazy.
And less crazy with less conspiracy theory. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yay! Yay us. Okay, good. All right. And let's talk about smart and dumb and fun stuff from this week. I'm going to go first this week, okay? So,
Excellent.
the other day, I was death scrolling with my phone and I noticed that I had a notification for a message on Facebook from my sister. And it was about the fact that Confections with Convictions, which is just a remarkably amazing candy place, confectioners, chocolatiers in the city of Kalamazoo, was making little chocolate geese. And they're amazing. So we went over there. We went to Farmer's Market yesterday and then we went to Confections with Convictions. We got there the second they opened and we each bought a box of chocolate geese. And what it came down to is that it presents like a turtle. You know how like you have a chocolate caramel turtle, and it's like a thing of caramel, and then it's got nuts, and then it's got chocolate on top of that. Well, they can't make those because they're trademarked. So they can't make turtles. So they wanted something that they could make instead. So instead of making turtles, they made little geese. And so it's like a thing that's got the chocolate, and then it's got a cashew and a walnut and an almond, and it looks like a little geese with wings. It's amazing. So you can kind of see the picture of it there. Anne sent me one with her with a tiny cat on it because she was going to make a diorama out of her chocolate geese, and they are amazing. They're so good,
So good. I know. I'm trying not to
so
eat them
good.
all at once.
It was real. I ate two, and I'm like was eyeballing a third later today. I'm like, no, brothers, you have to savor. I'm like, why do I have to savor? I'll just go get more.
Exactly. You live in Kalamazoo, just 5 minutes
Just
away, Jenny. You can have all the geese you want.
it's and again, you guys, if you have not been shopping for your chocolate at Confections with Convictions in Kalamazoo, you really should. A, because their chocolate is really it really is just this. It's beautiful, it's delicious, it's creative, and it's like the mission of Confection with Convictions is the mission is fantastic. The folks that are running the show there are amazing, so you should go there. There,
Yes,
I said it.
you should.
Yep.
I know because
All
I
right.
spent like 25 bucks on chocolate this week. So there you go.
Yes, without trying hard.
Without trying hard at all. All
Mm.
right. So my thing this week was dumb. Jenny and I were at the farmer's market, which is a smart thing to do. And we were browsing all the stands, which is super fun. And this one um, person had she had her thing set up and she had a bunch of things that she had sewn and one of them was a whole rack of skirts done in holiday themes with a bunch for Halloween. Now I adore Halloween. It's my most favorite holiday. So I saw some of the prints and they were pretty simple calico cotton. So it wasn't expensive fabric at all. But some of the prints looked like images from, say, like the 40s, like the late 40s. So the imaging was beautiful. And I was like, oh my gosh, how cool. And the skirts were very simple. They were elastic waistband, A-frame style. Honestly, something you could make if you have any sort of sewing skill. You can make them without a pattern. I mean, they're that simple. They were a little on the short side, but I was like, meh, why not? So I was looking at them. I was like really picking mine out. And she comes over and talks about them. And then I start to notice how poorly they're made. The elastic waistband, she used white thread, which did not match the skirts at all. The skirts were in oranges and blacks, and she had this white thread that was sticking out. And then her everything was crooked. And then she didn't cut the thread from when she was finished. I mean, and then her hem wasn't a French hem; it was just one fold instead of two. And I was just like, wow. But I was still considering buying it. And I was like, how much are they? And she's like, $65. And I
I heard her wrong.
did too. And I was like, okay, thank you. Bye. I couldn't believe it. And it's not like I'm an awesome seamstress. I tell people I put fabric, I connect fabric to other fabric. So I understand. But I was raised around women who were exceptional seamstresses. And man, and I was in 4-H. I took sewing in 4-H, man. Shoddy workmanship. I'm like, if she can get $65 for them, God bless her. So I went to Fields Fabric in Kalamazoo and I bought 2 calico prints, Halloween calico prints. I'm going to make my own skirts. So yeah,
Nice.
that was dumb. I was like, they were handmade, but they were not made well. So $65 was too much.
That was too much.
Yeah.
Real quick, and Fields Fabric's actually in Portage,
I'm
technically.
sorry.
It's
Portage.
close.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It's
Because
very
it's
close.
south of Kilgore, so technically that's
That's
Portage.
right.
So,
So
but
it's
just by a
Portage.
smidge. Yeah.
Yeah, just buy a
So
smidge. So anyway, if you need some fabric, go to Fields Fabric in Portage. They have great stuff. And it was like, I had a
right
blast
next to
picking
the
out my
airport.
fabrics. Yeah, right now.
So
Literally, you can see it from the window. So
yeah. Awesome. That's
mhm,
good.
mhm.
Well, and brothers, I think we should bring the wise and wonderful Shannan Denison into the show right now. And there she is, Shannan Denison. How's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
We are doing well. We are doing well.
Very
Thank you again for coming on the show and coming and hanging out with us and talking to us about financials and stuff. Because
mhm.
as brothers is, historically, we've been terrified of money.
There's never enough. We don't know what to do with it if we have it. And yeah, that's and
Yeah, that's the story of us.
that's the story of us.
Yay!
Well, rule number
Uh,
one is it doesn't matter how much money you make, it's what you do with what you make. Do you believe that?
okay.
I
Yes, because I'm actually
do.
starting to figure that. I started to figure that out about maybe 10 years ago, and I'm like, been doing better with that. So, yay. For
Good,
that. That's a
good.
great and true statement. All right. So Shannon, we have a series of questions that we always ask our guests. You've done an amazing job. You sent us an outline of everything. I'm like,
Mhm.
you've been on it, so which has been great. But we also have three very important questions that we did not talk about. Well, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but anyway, here are your three questions. Number one, tell us about you.
Tell me about you. Well, what do you want to know? You want to know about my career? Do you want to know about my upbringing, where I went to school? What would you like to know?
Yes, I'd like to know
Um,
all of those things.
Actually, I'd really like to know how you got into this line of work.
Okay, that's a good question. So I studied psychology at Grand Valley State University, and my mom was an education. She was in education. She taught fourth grade for 40 years, and she always said, "Shannon, you should be a teacher. You should be a teacher." And because I guess I teach pretty well, and that is my mission, to educate people so they can make smart financial decisions. However, in psychology, I knew I just wanted to help people. And I remember asking one of my favorite adjunct professors, what can I do with this degree in psychology? How I want to help people. What can I do? And he said, well, you can help people by cleaning toilets. So you're really going to have to get more specific than that.
It's a great statement.
And I said, yeah, I am going to have to get more specific than that. And again, my mom was pushing me towards education. And, I learned a lot of good things about finances from my parents. But the best thing I think I learned was don't get into credit card debt. Guess what? I did anyway. And I had to learn that lesson myself. You know how sometimes your parents try to teach you
Mhm.
things, but you have to learn the lesson yourself. Yes, that was one. But I didn't know anything about investing. And I thought, maybe I want to find out about that and teach people about that. And that's exactly what I end up doing, as a financial advisor. And I remember at the very beginning interviewing with a big name insurance company downtown. And I saw a sign that said, great career for women is financial advisor. And I thought, oh, okay. But in that interview, they were trying to tell me how, whole life insurance is going to solve all my clients' problems. And then
Wait, what now?
they were focused on the life insurance part of it. And then I
Okay.
interviewed with another firm who was more focused on the investments, but just the investments. And then finally, I interviewed what was at that time American Express financial advisors, and they were very much, hey, there's no cookie cutter way to work with clients, and we want you to be fully licensed so you can provide everything, and we want you to be more planning oriented. And I thought that's the one for me. And they actually also did a role playing exercise before they hired us. And one of them was you were a travel agent and you were supposed to sell this package and try to sell the big package. But you were also supposed to honor the client, the customer's budget and guidelines. And they did that to make sure you were ethical, because some people were in there trying to get that commission, but other people, obviously I passed that one because, didn't have whatever enough money, and you had to be respectful of that. So you don't want people spending money they don't have. Come on, that doesn't work, right?
No, it does not.
So,
No, it does not.
that's the long answer to the question of how I got into this. Yes.
Well,
Okay,
thank you.
that's awesome. Now, so let
Mhm.
me ask you this: so, as somebody that has studied psychology, how much of that do you have to bring into play when you're helping people plan?
Well, the way I do it, and my motto is dream, plan, track, and enjoy. It is a holistic fee-based practice. So we're really focused on the fact that money is a tool to get the things we want. So what do we want? What do you want out of life? And I have a lot of great tools at my disposal. And I think psychology, especially when it comes to couples, is super important with finances.
I bet.
And I have this tool, it's called Financial DNA, and it helps people, it's a short assessment. It helps people understand how they're wired. Are they more of a spender or saver? Are they more of a risk taker or not? And all these different levels. So it's great for couples, but it's great for everybody because it really helps you understand how you're wired to behave financially, if that makes sense.
Awesome.
That is.
Awesome.
Mhm.
So that takes us to our next question. Actually, it's not so much a question. We want to know something smart, something dumb, or something fun, or any combination of the three. Go for it.
So something fun, because I am here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, is that we
Ooh.
were out on the St. Mary's River today, and I caught a fish. I caught a 27-inch pike.
That's a
Oh my
big fish.
gosh.
And I didn't have to
Nice.
clean it. My husband did that. Yay. I think it's what
That's
we're going to get for
awesome.
dinner tonight. So, yeah. And we've done a
That's
lot of fishing up
awesome.
here, have not caught a lot of fish. So, that was very much a fun highlight today.
So you said you're up there by the St. Mary's River. So you're what over on the east side?
Yeah, I'm actually in the Sault Ste. Marie. So, yes,
Okay.
it's our second oldest city in the country. Yes, I'm
I did
here
not know that. I did
yeah,
not know that. So
pretty old.
so you're watching all the
And
boats come in and do their thing. That's cool.
yeah, watching the ships.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds
Very
nice.
good.
That
Oh,
sounds really
wow.
nice. Good.
What a
Cool.
great way to spend the day.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it. And congratulations on your 27-inch pike. That's outstanding.
Exactly. That is
All right.
very impressive.
So speaking of fish, what's your spirit animal?
Oh, now you make me want to change it to something under the water. But no, I think I'm going to go with a raven because they're the smartest bird, and of course, anything that can fly gets that bird's eye view, which I
Mhm.
just have to love.
That's cool. Ravens
That's
are
cool.
super smart.
Yeah, I love ravens and crows because I think they're hilarious. They're just, man, you're right. They're just so smart. I think they're and any bird that does well around humans has to has to be very
Yeah.
smart.
And you see them
Just like
everywhere, and like everybody underestimates them.
Yeah.
oh, for sure. And ravens are just big. They're just if you've ever seen a really good sized raven, they are impressive in terms of
Yeah.
their size and
Mhm.
their beak size and all that. So, all right, okay. All right, so Shannon, you sent us an outline, and I'm going to go ahead and bring that outline up in here so that we can see it. And specifically, what you talked about today is that you were talking about what are some three things that we should be thinking or doing, three financial concerns for every generation. So you're going to take us through these generations, starting with Gen Z. Nothing personal, Gen Z, but I couldn't help myself. You're the Gen Z. Sorry. All right, so Shannon, why don't you go ahead and take it away? And if we have questions along the way, we will jump in and ask those questions.
Okay. So Gen Z, and we're talking about 12 to 30, born in 1997 to 2012, 2011. And what I said first is credit and cash flow, because, it's never too early to understand credit and how that's going to work and to work on your credit. And cash flow goes hand in hand with credit, because cash flow is what do you have coming in and what do you have going out. And hopefully as a child, all of your basic expenses were covered. And so now, you're starting to learn the difference between needs and wants. And we'll have a little bit more of a conversation about that, I'm sure. But yeah, understand the difference between needs and wants, and start to understand the protection needs as well, because this is the first time you're going to get the auto and home insurance, and maybe you're going to start to look at life insurance or the different things. And why do we have insurance? We have it because something bad's going to happen, and you want to make sure you don't lose it all, right? That's basically it, to make sure that you're covered in worst case scenarios. So understanding how that works and making sure you have a great independent provider that can shop around for you and make sure you have the right protection at the right price is really important too. And then the last thing I put there is it's not too early to develop an estate plan. And what I mean by that is, right when your child turns an adult at 18, technically that person is an adult. And if something were to happen on a trip or vacation or whatever, a parent could not legally get information about that unless they have in place a power of attorney for healthcare. And I don't know if well, you're my generation, so you probably do remember. You remember the Terry Schiavo case? Remember what happened to her?
Oh, very much so.
So
Yes.
this was a young woman, in her 20s, and she had an awful accident, and she became a vegetable. And because she did not have an estate plan in place, which would identify how she wanted to be treated, in this sort of scenario, there became a battle between her husband, who actually had the control, and her parents, right? And it was not a pretty story. It did not end well.
Well, it
And
took years. It took
it took
years for that
years.
to be resolved. Yeah.
Exactly. And it could have all been avoided had she had that estate plan done. And it was clearly identified what she wanted to see happen when something awful happens, So yeah, it's never too early to get that stuff done.
Well, we had Kristen Britt on a few months ago to talk about estate planning, and that was something she talked about, and that was something that I had never even considered.
Me neither.
That it was just like, whoa, yeah, that's a good point, and
Mhm.
that was really kind of eye opening right there. And again, you don't think about you bring up a really great point about the idea that when it comes to your financials, estate planning is very much a part of that. And so, when Joe and I were working with you early in the process, that was one of the first questions you had for both of us
Mhm.
was, do you have your estate planning in order? And the answer was 50%, 50% of us do. But of course, we've resolved that now, but it's just one of those things that, again, you don't really think about that is actually part of your financial plan as well.
Exactly. Yep.
Mhm.
And something important for everybody to have, no matter where you are and what stage of life.
Mhm. No, I think it's interesting too that you talk about insurance needs, because I think about, like, when I was in my early 20s, that's when I got my car insurance in my name. And I had my Aunt Vicky talk to me about renter's insurance. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to, I don't need renter's insurance. But she was adamant that we get renter's insurance. And it ended up being very inexpensive. And she's like, can you afford to replace all the things that you have? And she's like, you may not think you have very much, but can you afford to replace it? And the answer was no. So that was the first time I ever considered having insurance. I needed the car insurance because I had a car and I was legally obliged to have car insurance. But that was the first time I thought about needing insurance for something I wasn't legally obliged to have, just for my own personal, peace of mind. So that
But
was
yeah,
the first one.
it's part of that transition. When you're a kid, you're under your parents' umbrella as far as insurance. And when you get to college, there's still part of that umbrella, and that you're part of. But it really is when you start to, you get into those late teens, early 20s, and that sort of becomes your thing. And most kids I know aren't. That it's not on their radar at all. So that's a great point.
No, and then you start to understand how, getting speeding tickets, or, accidents affects your insurance. And actually, if you have good grades, that can give you lower insurance when you're, you start to understand how it all works in the grown-up world, right?
Well,
Yeah,
and that's one of those. Go ahead, Ann. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I was just going to say that's not something that a lot of kids are really thinking about. They're so busy thinking about everything else, they're not thinking about these things.
Well, and I think the three tips that you give here, this has, you think, I could honestly have said that, when I was young. Well, of course, I'm not going to think about money right now because I don't have any. But this is less about thinking about investing money and more about thinking about what you need and how you perceive money. So it's really it's an interesting, it's the perfect place to start. I don't need you to start, building your Roth IRA this very second, but I did need to think about all those things. And I made mistakes when I was young because I didn't think about those things, and I didn't have anybody to point me in the right direction. So I think
Yeah.
this is an excellent place to start.
Oh, and I
Well,
love
at
that you
that
said,
age,
and about, like, I didn't need anybody asking me about a Roth, and I certainly didn't either. But I'll tell you what, the people that are starting, and they're like 18 years old, starting those Roth IRAs, I wish somebody would have said, hey, if you can right now, put $100 a month away,
Mhm.
because that's just a brilliant thing to do. And I love to
Right.
work with people that are on top of it like that, because if youth can start investing, I mean, they have the ability to acquire true wealth in a very short time, if they get started early. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and if I'd had,
Awesome.
somebody in my life saying that to me when I was 18, 19, or 20, it's probably something I would have done, because maybe I couldn't have done 100, but I could have done 25 probably,
Yeah.
a month, and that would have been, that would have put me years ahead of where I was. So,
Right. Oh, and $100 today is not $100 back when we were 18, by the way.
exactly,
No,
exactly.
no.
So, yeah, so this is, and again, once you start looking at these three things and realizing that it's not that scary, then you're more open to other. Now that I understand credit and cash flow, I understand some insurance needs. I understand why it's important to have an estate plan. Then the next steps seem less scary, less intimidating. So,
Indeed. Let's
mhm.
take a look at those next steps, shall we? As we are climbing up the generational ladder, let's talk to those millennials.
Okay, so digging in a little bit to the credit scores, this is super important. There are some financial people out there that will say, oh, you don't need a credit card. You don't need to have credit. You just need to pay cash. And I think that's directed towards people that have not used credit well. And have gotten in trouble. But the truth is, everyone has a credit score, and you need to pay attention to what that is, and you need to work on building it. And if you don't have credit, that's just as bad as like having a low score. So the best thing to do when you get started is to get a credit card, and to use it to pay off some sort of monthly bill, like maybe your internet or your phone, but use it and just pay it monthly. Don't carry a balance on it, but pay it monthly. So, because that's going to be important on so many different levels. I remember I had a friend once that, my age, she went to rent a car, and I knew she didn't have a credit card. I said, you're going to have a problem renting that car without a credit card. Oh, no, I won't. I've got my debit card. I got all this cash. It won't be a problem. Guess what? She got there and they would not let her rent a card without a credit card.
Mhm.
So you need to pay attention to that. So that's just super important. And I like Credit Karma because it's free, and it also gives you recommendations on what kind of cards you could use. And remember too, that the rules change on this. So like it used to be, having long histories was a good thing, and it used to be good closing accounts. And nowadays, not so much. They want to see accounts open for a long time. Another important key to remember is, you want a third or less of a balance. Ideally, you don't want to have any balance, right? You want to pay it off every month. But if you do carry a balance, make sure it's less than a third. So in other words, if they're giving you a $3,000 credit limit, you don't really want to go over $1,000, because that's going to start to really negatively impact your credit. And I would say if there's anybody out there listening that has bad credit, you can start building your credit really easily, and it starts to go up pretty dramatically in 6-month increments. So, that's important too. Okay, so moving to the cash flow, needs versus wants. This is a big thing to identify. Okay, so fixed expenses versus discretionary is another way to say that. But identify, okay, what do I have to pay for my household needs, for rent, for mortgage, for utilities, for groceries, for those insurances that I have to have. Really identify what those needs are, and then you can see what you have left over for your discretionary spending. And I always tell clients, hey, it's not my job to say, oh my gosh, you should not be going to Starbucks 3 times a week. It's just to give that mirror and look at your budget to see what's going on. How much are you spending on different things? Can we save money on some things? Can we spend less? Can we make more? There's different ways to improve your cash flow, which leads me to B, bundle to save. I just recently, I knew I could do this, but I just, it was in the back of my mind. I'm like, I know I could be saving money if I bundle. And finally, because, streaming devices, I think it's what, Disney, Hulu, and Max, right? Like, so I had my Max on Amazon and whatever, and then finally I said, okay, no, wait a second. I'm spending all this money on these things. And if I bundled them, I could be saving, I think I saved almost 50% on that. So, and that's just one example, but there's so many different ways that you can bundle to save and be a smart consumer. So, and yeah,
I just think that's so smart. And I think that's one of those things where people look at, if they're paying $4 a month for Peacock, or they're paying $8 a month for Max, or $13 a month for Netflix, those little things add up. And that's one of the things that I probably learned over the last 10 years is how much little things make big things. That's the truest thing that I know. And I think that thing where you talk about bundling to save, it's a little thing, but when it comes to, you know, wrangling your financials, that just small actions can end up having such a big impact later. It's a really big deal. So I think B is a big one right there. I think it's huge.
yeah. And then the third thing there is pay yourself first. It took me a little bit to get this because I was like, how can I pay myself first when I have this expense and this expense? Well, and what that means is savings, building that cash reserve. And a cash reserve is for two reasons. It's for emergencies if they come up, and it's for opportunities as well. And if every paycheck you get, you pay yourself first, meaning you save a little first, you put whatever you can in a cash reserve, and I don't care if it's $1 or $10, but you make a habit of doing that, then you start to have that cash reserve which you can go to in case of emergencies. And I just had a friend lamenting about the fact that a car broke down and they had to deplete a good chunk of their cash reserve. And I said, guess what, you have a cash reserve, you're way ahead of a lot of people. And that's exactly why you have it. So don't be so down on yourself. And maybe next time you'll be able to use it for an opportunity. But yeah, it's super important. And one rule of thumb is to have anywhere between 3 to 6 months of income or expenses in a cash reserve. And so that's going to change from person to person. But that's a good way to kind of think about what a goal should be for you in terms of building that cash reserve.
Do you have any recommendations for what kind of tools that you can use to do that? For some people, they just get so overwhelmed with even knowing where to start. Do you have any recommendations for, how do you know how much you should be paying yourself, or how, much cash reserve? Sometimes people just, is there a place they can go, a thing they can do, something that you would recommend to just get people started?
Yeah. So if you look, and it depends on what people use. So if you use a bank account and you're paying most of your bills there, you can look at your, transactions for the month and maybe just highlight, okay, which ones are my fixed expenses and which ones are discretionary, which ones, needs versus wants, just to get an idea of your own cash flow and what your, budget looks like. Because I think people just really don't know. We have what's called the sponge effect. We know a lot of times we have the automatic payment for your mortgage or your utilities. And, a lot of us need that, and that's good. But then the rest of the money, it's what I call the sponge effect, right? It just sort of gets sucked away. I don't know where it goes, and really the only way to know where it goes is if you start looking, and some people use a cash system for a while to identify where that money is going. Some people use the envelopes in the system. Some people are looking at their transactions on their, phone. Whatever it is, you just need to pay attention to what you're spending money on, and do it for a set period of time. And then you can really start to figure out where what you have going on with your own personal cash flow.
Awesome.
Excellent. Excellent.
Awesome. Yay. Okay. So that's, go ahead.
I was just thinking with the bundle to save. One of the things I learned very early on with insurance was that if you get them all from the same place, they'll usually give you a deal. So the first time I got like my car insurance and my and my renter's insurance together, it was like, oh, you get a deal because, and it wasn't like a huge amount of money, but it was less money. And I was, new to the job market and everything. So I was like, okay, everything counts. So that was like the first time I learned about bundling to save.
Yeah. The more you can do that, the
Now,
better.
more bundling. I know now. What is it? Progressive with their bundling commercials. Bundle and save. Bundle and save. So bundling. All right, let's talk about our generation. Totally. Totes Gen
Woo-hoo.
X. Let's go.
Oh, well, so number one, maximize pre-tax savings. I want to stress this because this is what I see as an opportunity for a lot of us. So what do I mean by pre-tax savings? I mean the money that you're saving in your retirement plan through work, right? If you have a 401k or a 403b, some people are fortunate enough to have employers who match the money that they put in there. So you not only are you getting a match, but everything that you put in saves you money on taxes, right? Because you put it in on a pre-tax basis. So retirement savings, pre-tax, health savings accounts, pre-tax. That's also another great one because, and of course, you have to have a high deductible and health insurance plan to be able to do that. But a great thing to do because you can build that up and use it for all kinds of things, glasses, over the counter stuff. And of course, that all saves you money on a tax basis too. So identify where you can do those pre-tax savings and do them as much as you can. And then number two, dollar cost averaging. I love this because this is basically smart investing. How do we invest the smartest? We do it on a regular basis. We do it the slow, boring way. We do it on a regular basis. So dollar cost averaging is a way to invest so that you're getting the best price per share over time. And the easiest way for me to explain that is to give you an example. So let's see, who shops more out of the two of you? Like who grocery shops more?
I would say probably Jenny does actually.
Okay. So Jenny, you're going to the grocery store and what is the one thing, like if it's on sale, you are going to stock up on?
What do I buy a lot of? Cat litter.
Cat litter. Okay.
Okay, this is the funny thing. The thing that I probably, because right now I'm by myself, until Joe gets back. Probably the thing I buy most of is cat food, honestly, because I got to feed my cats. They eat better than I do right now. So I would say I spend more money on cat food than I do pretty much anything right now because, they're my girls and I got to feed them. So, okay. Yeah.
So, okay. So you're going to the store and if it's on sale, you're going to buy it, right? Because the kitties need to eat. So
Pet Supplies Plus just had a sale on cat foods. It was buy 3, get 1 free.
All right. So you're doing that every time. And let's see, how often do you go to the store?
Go to the store? I didn't go to, let me see. I don't think I went at all last week. The week before I went to Costco and I went to Meijer because some things I get at Meijer and some things I get at Costco. So I usually go to Costco once a month and I usually go to Meijer once every 2 weeks.
Okay, so once a month and once every 2 weeks, which would be a great investment plan because here's the thing. I see some people that save, especially business owners, they want to do their investing in one lump sum at the end of the year when they know how much money they have to do it. And that's one way to do it. But have you ever heard the expression buy low and sell high?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, how are you going to know how to do that unless you have a crystal ball? Well, the way you do that is how Jen's going to pick up that discounted cat food every single time she goes. You do it on a regular basis, and then you have a better chance of that being on sale. If you invest on a regular basis, you have a better chance of the investments being on sale because they vary. They're going to go up over time. We know this. That's what happens in the long run. But it's not a straight line, and it does a lot of this, right? And so if you are doing a regular investment through plan through work or on your own, you have a better chance of getting an average lower price per share. if that makes sense.
Okay.
It does.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. That makes.
Yeah, it
So
makes a ton
dollar
of sense.
cost
Yeah.
averaging. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then protection review. This is, again, going back to the insurances and looking at everything you have and seeing, okay, is this the right protection? Is it at the right price? Am I sure how it works? And then how about beneficiary checks? Just looking to see who is, I recently had a client that was divorced but forgot to change her beneficiary on her group plans. It's like, oh, we better do that, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, you want to
Yeah.
make sure that you're reviewing some of those things on a regular basis. So
So when you say regular basis, give me a number as like how regularly.
well, open enrollment happens annually, so I think that's a good idea. You're not going to find a lower price if you don't shop for it. And so I do that for my clients is go out and shop for some of those, home and auto and different things like that. And those are the insurances that we have to have. Through work, you might have changes of your insurance through group plans. You just want to look and see, okay, do we still have those needs? Is it more expensive, less expensive, and just review that to make sure it's what you actually need to be doing.
Sweet.
Okay.
Love that. And I'm learning stuff right now. I never considered the dollar cost averaging. That's something that was
Mhm.
never ever been on my radar. Ever. I got a cat meowing at me. Sorry if you
I've
guys
got
can
one
hear that.
meowing at me too. He just brought me a toy
Okay.
because I have to tell him he's a
Oh
good
yeah,
kitty.
good kitty. Is that cuckoo?
It is. It is.
Cuckoo kitty.
Mhm.
All right, so let's go boomers.
Boomers,
Whatever,
yes.
boomers.
Yes. And I was just thinking it doesn't have to be boomers. Anybody can be a victim of financial fraud and scams. We always think, oh, it's the older generation, and oftentimes it is, but anyone can be a victim. And I've seen this happen a lot. And every year we have to do, um, you know, uh, cybersecurity and fraud training because it's unfortunately there's more and more bad guys out there. So you got to be just so on top of it. But yeah, some examples from phone calls of people pretending to be grandchildren for ransom money, or the IRS saying you owe money in taxes, or if they're not scaring you, they're trying to entice you and say you just won a bunch of money and all we need is your account number so that we can put the money in your bank or something like that. So that's phone call related, but a lot of times it happens online too. You've heard of phishing, that kind of phishing. In your emails, you can look for grammatical errors. That's often a giveaway. Never click on links, never put in passwords, never give your social security number. Lots of things that can happen because bad guys are out there trying to do bad things to people. So yeah, do you have any experience?
True.
You had heard of any of those happening to you or people that you know?
Yes.
What I've been, we've both my husband and I've seen slightly more regularly is texting, and somebody will text something like, "Hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. Text me back," and it's a mystery number. They haven't told me who they are. They haven't given me any other information, and it's kind of like they're again fishing to see if they can start a dialogue with you, and then work you into somehow getting your money. So both Duncan and I have seen that in our text threads, and of course we just get rid of them. But I was like, it's very sneaky because you're curious. I'm like, oh, who is this? Is it somebody I haven't talked to in a while or something? So it's like it's so innocuous that you think, oh, what could it hurt to click onto it? And they're not they're just looking to start a dialogue, and then pretty soon you're
You're
hooked in.
hooked in.
Yeah. And it's
So.
becoming more and more common. So,
Mhm.
I put it under this for generation because I think, we oftentimes it's the older generation that's victim, but it could be
Mhm.
anybody and
Oh,
any of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
yeah, and especially if you've been raised to be polite or raised to be helpful, you know, um, that's another thing that they get you with too. It's like, oh, I'm just trying to help them, or they asked for help, or I'm just trying to be polite. So that's another thing that they do.
Right. Hmm. And so the second thing I have there is diversifying your investments. So oftentimes, and at this age, we know whether or not, we should know whether or not we've saved enough money for our own lives, our retirements and all that. And oftentimes, though, what I see is not enough diversification amongst different types of investment products. So in the 20 some years that I've been doing this, there have been lots of changes and lots of different types of investment products added to what's available to the everyday, client. So it's not just mutual funds. There are, exchange traded funds and unit investment trusts and, all kinds of different things out there that can serve different purposes. And you want somebody that can explain those and make sure that you have the right things that you need. And, I think about diversification and anything really makes it stronger. If you think about a rope, if you just have one strand, it's not going to be very strong. But if you have 3, 4, 5, and it's well braided, it's going to be very strong. So you want to think about your investments in that way too. So not just in terms of asset allocation, although that kind of diversification is also super important. You want to be diversified amongst different investment products as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And then that last thing there, again, reviewing estate plan, checking all of your accounts and checking beneficiaries. Also, for people getting older, it's not a bad idea to ask, okay, well, what do you want to see happen if you're no longer able to care for yourself? And what do you want to see happen end of life? It's just such a huge gift. I think about my mother-in-law who said, when I die, call this number. And it was all taken care of, and it was such a blessing that because it's not when you want to, as a survivor, be making any kind of critical decisions. You want that to be done already. So it's a great gift to be able to do that for people that are going to be taking care of things after you go. And it's certainly, if you haven't done it yet, you want to make sure that you have thought that through and have things in place.
Mm-hmm.
Makes
Yes.
sense.
I was going to say when my grandma brothers passed away, that's basically all that had to be done. She had her funeral prepaid for. She knew exactly what she wanted to have done. And she had that all taken care of, years before because she didn't want anybody else to have to worry about it. And that was a real gift.
Huge.
Yeah, because
Yes.
she wasn't necessarily in her right mind at the end at all. So
Mhm.
those last few years were pretty tough. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, and you got to get it done before that happens too. So
Right. And that's what she
Yeah.
did. She had taken care of it. And so that, as she slipped into dementia, it wasn't something that, we didn't have to make that decision for her. She had already made it for herself. And that was,
Right.
That's really what you want, people in your life to do. It's like, make the decision because I may not make the decisions that you want. So if you make it and you let me know, or you write it down, or you have it in place, then we can't make a mistake. So
yeah, exactly.
Hooray!
Mhm.
Yeah. Indeed. All right. So let's talk about that silent generation, 1928 to 1945.
Yes,
The
the
old,
silent
the old
generation.
folks.
Yes. So legacy planning, and certainly at this point, I think people are in this age group. They know whether or not they've saved enough money for themselves. And if they are in that category where they've saved enough money for themselves, then they need to start thinking about what kind of legacy do I want to leave for myself? Do I have a second generation that I want to transfer wealth to? Do I have charitable organizations, a church, university, something close to my heart that I want to live on, kind of beyond the grave, and be thought of and be remembered, as well as benefiting something that I care deeply about? That's an important thing to do at that time. So, and those things change, and that's why I say estate plan review, which should be done probably every 3 to 5 years, because certainly changes happen in the laws, and changes are going to happen in your own financial situation and in the economy. So you want to review those things and make sure everything's exactly how you want it to be, and that it happens without issue, without argument. It's sad, but it's true that when people pass, uh, loved ones start arguing with each other about silly things, and
Yes, they
that can
do.
all be avoided. All be avoided. So, with having a good plan in place. So, and then that
Yeah,
last
I've
thing we ever.
seen
Oh yeah, go ahead.
seen families break up over this, really
Hmm.
just do irreparable damage to themselves because of a lack of planning on, yeah,
Yeah,
it
you
seems
never.
to
I was gonna say you're never presenting your best side when you're fighting over stuff, and that's what usually happens is like people are fighting over stuff,
Mhm.
so
yeah,
because you can't take it with you.
agreed.
Yeah,
Cannot.
You can't. You can't.
Oh,
Unless you're
it's
going to
true.
build
It's
a
true.
big pyramid for yourself and just piling up all around you.
I don't know, maybe the Egyptians were onto something. I don't
Maybe.
know.
Maybe.
yeah, and
Uh,
then that last thing there, taxes, and that's really important in every stage too.
Mhm.
But I think it's always that your tax return always tells your story, your financial story, at least what you told Uncle Sam. And I love going through that with clients because it helps we say we can look to see where maybe they could have saved some money on taxes, or where they are spending, they have some tax-free income or could have some tax-free income. So it's just always something that I think gets overlooked unless you have somebody being proactive with you and helping you both save taxes in this year, and then also thinking about it in years to come, and how, especially with generational wealth planning, how things might get passed on tax wise to the next generation. Certainly that's going to be changing. We have tax schedules in place that are scheduled to expire in 2025, next year. Of
Mhm.
course, that all can change depending on who's in office and what they all do, but it's something we want to be proactive and plan for when we can. So,
Okay.
big
all
part of
right.
it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I've got one last question before we kind of head off. Is that if you were to give, um, let's say, two pieces of advice to people who are trying to get themselves together financially, what might those pieces of advice be?
Well, you got to find out where you are. So the very first thing is to look at your current financial situation. So again, it's your cash flow. What do I have coming in? What do I have going out? That's always first. And then understanding, again, it's not how much money you make, it's what you do with what you make. So example, we all need to eat and have a roof over our heads, but we don't have to live in the Taj Mahal or eat steak and lobster every day, right? So there
Mhm.
are levels of that, and depending on how much you do bring in, you have to decide what level is appropriate. And the trick is to always bring in a little, is to spend a little less than you're bringing in, or a lot less, and that's why I say pay yourself first. And everybody can do it. I remember when I started in this business, I had clients who, on paper, they look great. They were making well into the six figures, and I was like, "Oh, these are going to be great clients." And somehow, after paying me to do financial planning, they took none of my advice, and they were literally spending more than they were bringing in. And I was like, "How is this possible?" And on the other hand, I had clients that their income was 30,000, married with two kids. Of course, this is 20 years ago. So not a lot, but they hired me to do financial planning, and they followed all my advice, and they're still with me today. And they're one of my most prosperous clients because, again, they, did well with what they had. And as they continued to grow and build, they were able to do better and better. So there's always something you can do to do better financially. And that's what I hope
Agreed.
to impart to
Agreed.
people.
All right. Nice.
Excellent.
Nice. That's excellent. And I would say to folks that it's never too late to get started. Even
Mhm.
if you're a little older, um, little things make big things, and any changes that you could make, regardless of where you are in life, those are going to be positive things. And I would say that I am living proof of that. So yay. So
Great.
Well, and I think it's it's you can scare yourself into not doing anything. And
Yeah, that's easy to do. Yeah,
and
well said.
like you said, if you can just start with what comes in, what goes out, that's pretty straightforward. And then you build on that, and it pretty soon you're not scared. You feel empowered. So that's the other
Awesome.
Yeah.
part. Hmm.
Well said.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Well, we are running into our hour here, and before we do that, I have to read our disclosure that we agreed to, and so we're going to go ahead and read that real quick. Um, So this is Denison Financial offers securities through International Assets Advisory LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through International Assets Investment Management LLC, and SEC registered investment advisor. Denison Financial is unaffiliated with International Assets Advisory and International Assets Investment Management. Denison provides general information, not individually targeted personalized advice, and is not liable for the usage of information discussed. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles should not be considered investment advice or a recommendation to buy, sell any of these financial vehicles. This information should not be considered tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult a professional specializing in fields of tax, legal, accounting, or investments regarding the applicability of this information to their situation. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments will fluctuate, and when redeemed, may be worth more or less than originally invested. Opinions and information provided are subject to change without notice. Let's
Very,
go.
very good. Very
Good
good.
job, Jenny Brothers.
I know. Woo. I'm like, I've done it now. I've done it. I know I was nervous about that, but I think I pulled it off.
You
You
did
did.
really well.
You did great.
So, Shannan, thank you so much.
Mhm.
Humongous thank you to Shannan
Thank
Denison. This
you.
was really wonderful, and I think this
Really
is
was.
really was, and some great advice for every generation. Things to be thinking about. If you're interested in knowing more about Shannan, you can contact her at Denison Financial, 616-264-3443, or you can get a hold of her at sdenison@iaac.com. You could also find her on the Facebook and LinkedIn. And again, here's her awesome logo, Denison Financial. Dream, plan, protect, enjoy. I have good news for you, Shannan. You have got a tote bag coming your way for being a guest.
How
Guests on the
fun.
Brother Sisters Smart
Thank
Dumb Fun
you.
receive a tote bag because you can never have enough tote bags. And you know what? If you're going to farmers market, you got to have a tote bag because all the cool people have
Totally.
tote bags and wagons.
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah.
So we're half cool. I'm 50% cool because I do bring my own tote bags now, but I don't have a wagon. So
I'll
one
rock
thing
that
at a
brother
time.
sister's tote bag.
Excellent. Excellent. And Jenny, wagons just get in the way. So,
That's
yeah.
true, especially on a crowded one. Joe Peters is with us today. Hi, Joe Peters.
Hi.
Joe says hi, Shannon. So there.
Nice.
Mhm.
Hi.
Awesome. All right. So, well done, everybody. You have joined us for an hour or so. You've heard the brother sisters talk about smart, dumb, fun stuff. Today, we talked with Shannon Denison, financial planner, and she took us through some financial advice for all the generations. Well, not all of the generations, but the most relevant generations currently. And that was awesome. So thank you for spending the hour with us. Remember, we want to hear from you, answer our poll questions, leave comments, ring the bell, and of course, give us your questions, concerns, comments, and
Confessions.
confessions.
Mhm.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
confessions this week. That's okay. That's all right. We'll live with it. And you guys remember you can support us for free. All you got to do is like, subscribe, leave a review on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Music. And it costs you absolutely nothing to go ahead and just do any of those things and tell your people to do the same thing. We don't bite very hard, so trust us on that. All right. Join us next week, you guys. Anne's going to be running around doing whatever. So, as a result of that, you guys, we will present an encore episode featuring the Wolves and Moose Project of Isle Royal. That's one we did about 3 years ago. We're going to bring it back and dust it off so you guys can, so Anne and her husband could go, do fun stuff. And
Huh.
so we'll do that. It's going to be awesome. You guys. It's a great show. It's really relevant right now because we're seeing that the Wolves are very successful on Isle Royal. The only problem is that the Rangers are having to haze the Wolves a little bit because they're starting to figure out that there's yummy food at the campsites of Isle Royal, and they're starting to kind of hang out with humans, which isn't necessarily a good thing for anybody involved. So anyway, so that's what we're doing next week. We are happy to have you. I'm going to go ahead and get our outro music going.
Mhm. Excellent. Ooh, there you go. Thanks, Max.
There it is. Max Caselli's The Ballad of the Brother Sisters. So anyway, join us next week, you guys. And until then, I am Janice Brothers, and with me is my sister
And brothers.
and financial planner Shannan Denison. And as always, we want you to get out there and do something smart, do something dumb, do something fun. We're out of here.